Namaste to everyone. Today we are going to have the lesson on the concept of ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is an important component in culture. This concept of ethnocentrism was originally used by sociologists, anthropologists, but over time other disciplines has developed and used it widely. The other disciplines such as psychology, social work and management and different fields of social sciences, they have started using this concept of ethnocentrism. Nevertheless, despite the wide usage, ethnocentrism has been slippery concept with a very loose and inconsistent usage. Ethnocentrism is often grouped together or even used interchangeably with concepts such as racism, nationalism, discrimination, prejudice, and xenophobia. Like these related concepts, ethnocentrism is considered as undesirable phenomena. So, concept of ethnocentrism is a very important aspect of subject of study for the students to understand the cultural milieu of the world. Accordingly, a major function of most usages ethnocentrism is to condemn it as negative, wrong, and harmful, and the imperative is to avoid, reduce, and eliminate it. Although various authors have often questioned whether it is possible to eliminate ethnocentrism, it is rare to use the concept with the positive connotations. Even though at times ethnocentrism has been perceived as a valuable. In general, two conceptual facilities have affected the study of ethnocentrism. The first fallacy refers to the tendency to use the concept of ethnocentrism to denote diverse and unrelated phenomena. For example, ethnocentrism for some is positive evaluation of one's own group, which has been coined by Turner in 1987, and for others it is a hostile and anti-minority attitude, which was called by Altermeyer in 2003. The second fallacy pertains to the tendency to study the phenomena of ethnocentrism using different concepts. The anthropologist Franz Boas, one of the most vocal opponent and critics of ethnocentrism, often wrote about phenomena that others labeled ethnocentrism, but did not use the concept itself in his major writings. In 1940, he has told that it is no doubt due to the early broad, imprecise, and loose usage that ethnocentrism has meant different things to different disciplines and individuals. Accordingly, in addition to historical interests, it is important to understand the original usage of ethnocentrism as these have affected most future usage. Now, let us analyze the concept of ethnocentrism. Culture of any group becomes so much part of the lives of its members that they start feeling that their way of doing things is right. Perhaps the only way of doing things, the feelings takes an extreme side when the other way of doing the same things appears to be abused, different, or perhaps weird. So the belief that one's own culture is superior to other culture is termed as ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism, in contrary, opposite of the concept of cultural relativism. So now you can able to understand that one feels that their own culture is superior to other cultures. That is termed as ethnocentrism. So, what is ethnocentrism? If you feel your culture is higher than the other culture, or higher, or you can call it as a superior. If you feel that, or if you coin that your culture is higher than the other's culture, that is ethnocentrism. Now let us look into the term. The term ethnocentrism was first coined by William Graham Sumner in 1906. In his writing, he discussed the concept between group fightings. He believed that the evolution of warfare was due to the ethnocentrism and xenophobia. He presented the notion that warfare is possible because one group sees itself as superior and better than the views of other group. He presented the notion that warfare is possible because one group sees itself as superior and better, while others views the other group is inferior. So here we can able to understand, because of the inferiority and the superiority, the warfares, the fightings, the difference of opinion will be coming. That is what William Graham Sumner has defined in 1906. Now let us define ethnocentrism. How various scholars defined the ethnocentrism. First, let us look into the definition by William Graham Sumner, who coined in 1906. He defined ethnocentrism is a belief that the norms, values, ideology, customs and traditions of one's own culture or subculture are superior to those characterizing other culture settings, and has long served as a cornerstone in the social analysis of the culture. So according to him, according to the William Graham Sumner, it is the belief, the norms, the values, ideology, customs and traditions of one's own culture or subculture are superior to those characterized other culture settings. That means, the values, the morals, ethics, all these things a person can be considered as superior to others' culture in different ways that we will be discussing in later. Then, while studying in the concepts, William Graham Sumner has observed that the people show a generally tendency to regard their own culture and ways of doing things as right, and develop a sense of superiority, and they develop a sense of competent to other outsiders, culture practices and belief system. So here you can see that the culture of one person will be differing to another person. So we cannot find all cultures exist in all societies same. So each society has having a different cultures. So different cultures have the different ways of beliefs, values, ideologies, customs and traditions. So a person believes that based on these ideology, these customs and traditions, he defines, or he himself thinks that his society or his culture is superior to other culture. That is what we can able to understand from these definitions, and also the way they are practicing. And ethnocentrism is a concept that indicates the other way of life or doing things as a distorted version of one's own. Understanding the concept of ethnocentrism and cultural relativism is gaining importance in the context of global dealings, where an individual or a group or a company feels that the ideas or methods that were successful in their own company will work in other countries also. Here we can see those who are intelligent, those who can able to work hard, and those who can able to innovate the things, they create the knowledge, they will be acknowledged and they will be taken into other countries also, and they will accept your culture as though they feel inferior, they will be accepting it. I wanted to give my own example, my experiences in Germany, that is in Maximilian University in 1994. I have visited as a visiting professor to teach the students of anthropology there under the DAD fellowship in the Department of Anthropology and African Studies, where I have observed I am an Indian, belong to Hindi society, whereas the Germans are different people, different, racially different, culturally different. My culture, my way of thinking, my way of traditions and culture is different. First I find this. Later on, when the days goes on, I observed that they accepted my as a member of that society. I have stayed with them in their quarters, and because of my knowledge in teaching and the subject, they consider me as equivalent to them. So they started giving very good respect compared to other professors. That is what I have observed. Not only here in Maximilian University in Munich, in also Canada Dalhousie University, where 5 times I have visited for teaching. Based on my knowledge of teaching in anthropology and sociology, they consider me as a superior in the field of knowledge. Here you should understand, the superiority or inferiority comes or differs at certain levels, but at certain levels it not differ. Whether your society is inferior, the culture is inferior also, when you have the knowledge, when you have the subject matter, and you will be equally respected. That you have to understand. Why Hindu culture and Hindu way of life all over the world acknowledges, praises. Why? Because of the cultural values we are having is totally different from other cultures of all over the world. Now let us have another definition by Richard T. Schaffer, who is a professor in United States. In his textbook on race and ethnicity in the United States, he defines that the tendency to believe that one's culture and way of life are superior to all others. See, it's a simple way he has defined. Ethnocentrism is defined as the tendency to believe that one's culture and way of life is superior to others. It's easy. So if you feel your culture is superior to other culture, then it is ethnocentrism. Now let us look into the another definitions by Henslin. In his textbook Sociology, a down-to-earth approach by James, ethnocentrism he defined as the use of one's own culture as a yardstick for judging the ways of other individuals or societies, generally leading to a negative evaluation of the values, norms and behaviors. Here he has gone in a little bit in depth. He mentions that the usage of his own culture as a yardstick, measuring his own culture by using his own cultural way of life to others. Measuring is called as ethnocentrism. He uses his culture as a yardstick to measure other cultures. Different parameters he may be using. With that parameters he measures and he comes to the conclusion that his culture is superior to other culture. That is Heinzelin definition. Now let us look into the another definition by Berger. Ken Berger, who is a professor in University of Indianapolis, he defines ethnocentrism can be defined as a making false assumptions about others' ways based on our own limited experience. So he has mentioned that ethnocentrism can be defined as making false assumptions. So this is a false assumption, thinking that your culture is higher than the other's culture, superior than the other's culture, is a false assumption about others, based on our own limited experience. Without any experience, without knowing the other's culture, you will be thinking that your culture is superior. That is ethnocentrism. Here we are not able to understand the other's culture. The other society people, other culture people, they may be thinking their culture is very superior based on their ideology, based on their culture, and the way of life is different, and your way of life is different. So we cannot judge the differences between the two cultures. That is what Berger says, that is a assumptions only. Many social scientists, especially sociology scholars, believes that Ludwig Gumbrecht is the person who has seriously worked among the concept of ethnocentrism. He has published several books in the second half of the 19th century. Gombrich saw ethnocentrism as a similar concept to genocentrism, a belief that the earth is the center of the universe, and anthropocentrism, that is a belief that humans are the center of the earth, but focused on one's own ethnic group with the assumption that it is better than any other. That is what Gombrich has written in 1881. That is why many of the social scientists mentions that Gombrich is the first person who has coined the word ethnocentrism. McGree used it in several publications. His ethnographic study of Seri Indians described their way of thinking to be tribe-centered or ethnocentric, because they view extraneous things, especially those of animate nature, with reference to the tribes in 1898. McGee described Seri Indians as the tribe with an exceptionally high level of ethnocentrism, so high that they passionately glorified the tribe, demanded blood purity, and showed intense hostility towards everyone else. So, really, I myself also feel that Gombrich has really worked and contributed lot of ethnographic reports on the tribes, and his contribution is great for anthropology, sociology, and psychology. And we can say that he is the first person to coin the word ethnocentrism. Okay, now let us go into the another unit of study. Now let us look into the concept of human science and ethnocentrism. Eminent anthropologists like Franz Boas and Bronislaw Melaninsky took to the argument that any human science must transcend the elements of ethnocentrism. Striking off, ethnocentrism may be found in Hitler's philosophy of Nazism, where Hitler and his followers believed in the superiority of the Aryan race and regarded the Jews and Hispanians race inferior. The Nazi form of ethnocentrism took an extreme view and took the steps of cleanishing the German society, thus exterminating the lives of the so-called inferior races. This is a very important ethnocentrism aspect. In Germany, the Hitler has thought that his race is superior than the other races of Jews and Hispanic. You can see from these photographs how mercilessly he has killed the Jews and Hispanic race people in Germany and waged a war against other countries. And always he is biased that his race is higher than the other two races. He don't want to be other races to exist on the planet. That is also, you can say, his ideology is totally different. Both his colleagues and Hitler destroyed the Jews and Hispanic race in Germany, and the photographs which you are observing, you can see how mercilessly they have been killed in the jail. It's a pathetic condition. That is what we can give one of the best example of ethnocentrism. It's not only a biased way, but also a psychological thinking about the superiority, inferiority of the race. Another important illustration of ethnocentrism can be traced in the works of Elizabeth Spearman. In her work, she reflects the feminist legal theory as a feminist ethnocentrism. Feminist ethnocentrism refers to the belief in the pan-global inferiority of women, particularly women of a particular race or skin color, as subordinated across the borders, across the cultures, and across social groups or classes. See, she is a feminist writer, and she has beautifully analyzed in her book on the feminist ethnocentrism, or how the male dominant society thinks about the females. Across cultures, people think that the women are inferior to other cultures or male members. So this is a very important one which you can observe among the various populations, not only in the United States, all over the world, is a universal issue. A male dominant society, that is a patriarchal societies. Patriarchal societies are playing a major role than the matriarchal societies. Here I wanted to refer my research work among the Khasis, Garos of northeast region of India, where matriarchal society and matrilineal exist among them, but they are doing a wonderful job. Their families, their way of thinking, their knowledge, their education system, the living conditions are better than the other population of central India. So you can see the matriarchal society plays an important role in taking care of the families. They are the people who contribute the family income and protecting the family, taking the family to ahead of the. Without a woman, a family cannot exist. That is very important. In India, the family system is very strong. That is why Indian society, Indian culture is very strong when compared to other cultures of globally. Ethnocentrism is the term used by anthropologists to describe the opinion that one's own way of life is natural or correct. Some would simply call it cultural ignorance. Ethnocentrism means that one may see his or her own culture as the correct way of living. For those who have not experienced other cultures in depth can be said to be ethnocentric if they feel that their lives are the most natural way of living. Some cultures may be similar or overlap in ideas or concepts. However, some people are in sense shocked to experience differences they may encounter with individuals culturally different than themselves. One of the best examples I wanted to give you, the dormitories of tribals, which is called as Gothul, which you can see the Verrier Elvin's wonderful book, the Baiga, which I wanted to tell you, where he has clearly described about the Gothul, the importance of the Gothul, how it functions as a economic unit for the welfare of the entire tribe of the village. In every tribal village you have a Gothul. It is not only Gothul, they will be learning of the economy, education, health, all the aspects. Apart from that, they are also running the how to behave, how to respect each other. And most of the treasure that we can call as a folk culture, that is, flora, fauna, all are in the folk songs preserved. There is no written script for them. Most of the literature, most of their knowledge is preserved in the folk songs. All the folk songs are taught in the Gothul by the elders to the youngers. Many people think that it is a sex house and it's not like that. It is not like that. So it is a economic organization. It is well accepted in that society, whereas in other populations they may think it is not good and it is a different type of culture, inferior culture. No, it is not an inferior culture. It is a superior culture where entire knowledge is preserved in the people's mind. That is one of the best example which I can give you. Then marriage system. In India, we have the arranged marriage system. I got arranged marriage. I am living with my wife since last 40 years. I am happy. I have 2 kids. I am living happily. Whereas arranged marriage in the West, they doesn't like. They say it is a funny arranged marriage. How? No. First we have to friendship, understand each other, live together for some time. Then if you like, you can go for a marriage, or otherwise you separate. So if you look into these aspects of marriage system, in India, the arranged marriage is the respectable way of performing the marriage. The elopement and other things they are considered as next to arranged marriages, whereas West is totally different. For them it is a superior culture, for us it is a inferior culture. When a marriage lesson came for my teaching, the student asked me, "Sir, how many wives you have? How many times you are divorced?" I told, "I have only one marriage arranged by my parents, and I have married. I am living with her since last 32 years. They are surprised. Sir, 32 years you are living with one woman. How it will possible?" So I told, it is possible. So that is why most of the Asian people, American people, West people likes to marry Indian women. They adjust, they go along with the male partner and try to change the male and live with them happily. That is the unique characteristics of a Indian woman. Whether invariably any religion, any culture she belongs. That is the one of the best example of ethnocentrism. How you will be using yourself, you are doing these things are good and others are bad. It's not like that. Even in India, another best example is the caste system. We have the caste system in India: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. The Brahmins feels higher status, Vaishyas next, Shudras next. Like this, you have the hierarchy. That ethnocentrism exists from several years. Now it is slowly going, but in spite of this, still it is existing in India. That is the ethnocentrism. I think we will be discussing this caste system is a separate unit of study in the class. In extreme cases, a group of individuals may see another culture's way of life and consider it as wrong. Because of this, the group may try to convert the other group to their own way of living. Fearful war, genocide could be the devastating result if a group is unwilling to change their ways of living. This is a very interesting a point that the dominant communities will try to absorb the smaller groups or smaller communities into their own communities. That is which you can see here. Many of the smaller communities and little known tribal communities were absorbed by the major communities. An example of ethnocentrism in cultures is the Asian culture across all the countries of Asia. Throughout Asia, the way of eating is differently. Some eat with the chopsticks, especially the Mongoloid people in Japan, China, Indonesia, other Mongoloid people, they will use the chopsticks. In India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, they will be using their hands for eating. Which you can see here, the way of eating is differs from one society or one culture to another culture. So here, what I wanted to tell you is, though throughout Asia and also all over the world, the food habits of eating is totally different from one another. Those people may find it unnecessary to find that people in other society, such as the American society, eat using forks, spoons and knives. See here, in Asia, we use mouth sticks or hand for eating, whereas United States, they use spoon and forks and knives. So they think differently about our way of eating, the Americans. So we feel eating with the hand is different, and we have the self satisfaction. And the Chinese and the Japanese people with more sticks they are eating, they feel it is superior than the other cultures. Since these countries use chopsticks to eat every meal, they find it is a foolish for other cultures to not use utensils similar to chopsticks. However, they do not accept the fact that they use different utensils for eating. This example is not something extreme that could lead to the genocide or a war, but it is a large enough gap between these cultures for people to say their way of eating as the natural or best way to typically eat their food. So, the food culture also plays an important role on ethnocentrism. If you go to a dining hall in a big hotels, in a dining hall there will be South Indians, North Indians, Chinese and Americans sitting in the same dining hall. But if you look into the food habits, it will be totally different. Some will be eating, especially the Indians will be eating with the hand. Chinese will be eating, Japanese will be eating with the mouth sticks. Whereas the Europeans, they will be using the fork and a spoon and knife. Here I wanted to refer the important experience where I had in Germany. When I went to Germany, I have the invitations from different professors for dinner. In one of the important occasion, for a marriage day celebration, they invited me along with my colleague Hilda K. Link, who is associated with me in my research project, Indo-German project on cultural anthropology. Before going to the party, Professor Link asked me to sit with her and started telling about the table manners, how to eat, how to sit, and how to use the fork, knife and spoon. The method of chewing also, while as an Indian I feel while eating we will be making a sound like this. No, sometimes the sound comes, see this, that doesn't like. It is not a table manners. We cannot do like that. We should close your mouth and you have to use, the sound should not come outside. That is the one of the important things she has told me. And also how to, after completion of the food, if you don't want how to keep your spoon and fork and knife on the table, on the plate, and what way you have to eat in the left side and the right hand, what for usage, is also important table manners which you have learnt. So there are a lot of things which you have to tell about ethnocentrism, which I am not at all aware of it. Only after going in 1994, I have learnt about the table manners with European people. Yes, I like it very much. I have learnt a lot with my colleague Professor Hilda Link and Professor Matthias Labucher and Professor Kapp and Professor Heidermann, who has worked or working in Germany as professors of anthropology and Indology in Cologne University and Maximilian University. So I had the opportunity to sit with them and eat with them, as though they think that they are racially or color wise, complexion wise superior, but as I have the knowledge of the subject, that power of knowledge takes you to on par with the other cultures also equal. That is the greatness. That is why you should develop your knowledge. If you can able to develop your knowledge, you can able to innovate things. You can able to create the knowledge, that is invention, innovation, and you can able to diffuse your knowledge. There you will be recognized. You is the one of the best person. Invariably of cultural or any other differences, it will go away. That is necessary. That is very important. Another important example is ethnocentrism in colonialism. Colonialism can be defined as a cultural domination with enforced social change. Colonialism refers to the social system in which the political consequences by one society of another leads to the cultural domination with the enforced social change. A good example to look at when examining the colonialism in the British overtake of India. The British had little understanding of the cultures in India, which created a lot of problem and unrest during their rule in India. India faced a lot of problems with the British. British always thought their culture is higher than the Hindu or Indian people. They didn't understand the cultures properly, the way of life which we are living, the caste system, the tribes, and Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. Each we have a different kind of ethics, morals, and cultural traits, and also the behavior, food habits, economy, all are totally different. They didn't understand. They have used their way of ruling forcibly, imposed their culture into Indian population, where we have faced a lot of problems. There were wars, there were many people were killed in many satyagrahas, and you can see the film on Gandhi by Richard Attenborough, how he have presented the freedom fighting and also the ill treatment of the British to the Indian population. It is one of the best example of ethnocentrism. Anthropologists endeavors as far as possible to avoid ethnocentrism. It is not logically possible and proper to underestimate or overestimate or judge other cultures on the basis of one's cultural standard. Ethnocentrism in general is an attitude of taking one's own culture and ways of life as the best and the centers of all, and on the other hand, regarding other ethnic groups and cultures as inferior, bad, full of errors, etc. It is the tendency to apply one's own culture values in judging the behavior and beliefs of people raised in other cultures. It is the cultural universal. People everywhere thinks that familiar explanations, opinion and customs as true, right, proper and moral. They regard different behavior as strange or savage. The concept of ethnocentrism is widely used by the sociologists and psychologists than the anthropologists. Anthropologists will be using in field research methods and research doing and in their presentation, where sociologists and psychologists are using in everyday life or everyday aspects of dealing with the people and the society. For the better understanding of ethnocentrism, I would like to bring some of my research observations among the tribals, especially on the forms of marriage. They have nearly 8 forms of marriage exist among the tribes: arranged marriage, elopement, marriage by service, marriage by intrusion, marriage by capture. Like this, they have different forms of marriages. Marriage by capture. Let us take an example. If a boy goes and captures a girl, brings to the house and keeps inside the house, but the boy and other friends who has brought her from the forest or a jungle, they won't even touch. She will be kept as a sacred till that girl's parents comes with their elders and sits with them and finalizes that negotiation of paying the bride price and performing the marriage and giving the different kinds of bride price, both cash and kind. If the bride is not accepted after all these things, the bride will be sent to the home. That is the unique characteristics of the tribes. You may be thinking that tribes are lower than us, but no, tribes are one of the topmost cultured way of living people in the world. No culture is superior than the tribal cultures. I have since last 45 years I am working on the tribals of India and different countries. I find there is unique culture. Each tribe is having a unique culture and unique importance. You can refer my ethnic documentary films on 75 aboriginal populations of India. I have given each tribe as a unique one, which are hosted in the YouTube. So you cannot judge yourself that your culture is superior and other culture is inferior. So in modern society, what they will do? If they will catch a girl, then immediately they will do rape. That is what it is happening in the cities, in the streets, daytime and night in the lights. That is a pathetic condition. See the difference between the tribal culture and so-called civilized culture. Ethnocentrism is one of the fundamental concepts in psychology, sociology, anthropology, and also in other social sciences. The phenomena of ethnocentrism is widely studied in psychology, often referring to the concept of ethnocentrism itself, and more recently using the concept of in-group bias, which is the laboratory analog of real-world ethnocentrism. It has now become a widely cited truism in psychology and the social sciences that William Graham Sumner, in his highly important book Folkways, introduced three fundamental concepts: ethnocentrism, in-group and out-group. Indeed, the two most widely cited books on ethnocentrism states first introduced and used descriptive by Sumner in 1906. The term had the general meaning of provincialism or cultural narrowness. It meant a tendency in the individual to be ethnically centered, to be rigid in his acceptance of the culturally alike and in his rejection of the unlike. And in his Folkways of 2006, William Graham Sumner contributed to modern social sciences the widely used concepts of in-group, out-group and ethnocentrism. Similarly, in his influential review of social psychology of intergroup relationship in the annual review of psychology, writes, ethnocentrism together with those of in-group and out-group. Similar pronouncement about Sumner as the originator of the concept are too many to cite and continue to this date. For example, Kinder and Kalm 2009 Ethnocentrism is an ancient phenomenon, but it is a modern word invented at the opening of the 20th century by William Graham Sumner, an eminent professor of political and social science at Yale. Various disciplines have linked both explicitly and implicitly ethnocentrism and religion. Religion is often very significant attribute of ethnic groups, and as is the case with other attributes, giving strong importance to the religion of one's own ethnic group is an aspect of ethnocentrism. Early writers on ethnocism often linked to religion and ethnocentrism in this way. For example, Sumner wrote that a characteristic of ethnocentrism is that each group exalts its own divinities. Having a unique religion is an important differential characteristic for many ethnic groups. But even when ethnic groups adopt world religions such as Christianity, they may adopt them to fit their own ethnic groups. For example, Orthodox Christianity is very explicitly tied to specific ethnic churches. Example, Russians, Bulgarian, and Greek Orthodox churches. Furthermore, a time example among the Tibetans, religious and ethnic groups members almost completely overlap. Nonetheless, expressions of ethnocentrism are not necessarily related to religion. This may be case a religious group consists of people from different ethnicities. Different religious groups exist in the same ethnic group, or most members of the ethnic group are not religious. Then religion can justify ethnocentrism. Many ethnic groups or religious beliefs, stories, and myths to affirm the importance and centrality of the ethnic group in one's own life and in the world. For example, in non-industrial societies, the name of God is something equivalent to the name of the tribe. In other ethnic groups, religion myths teach that the world origin is within one's own. Similarly, other religions' ideas, such as God's chosen people, explicitly use religion to enforce ethnocentric thinking. It is the views of Sumner. Many ethnic groups have also called upon God during conflict with another group. For example, both Palestinians and Israelis invoke the same God in the idea of a God given Holy Land to justify their sense of entitlements to the same land. This in turn also justifies their own ethnocentric attitudes such as sense of devotion, group cohesion, and superiority. In this context, I would like to mention that I had the opportunity to work among the Christian communities in South India, especially in Pondicherry and Tamil Nadu for the People of India project. As a coordinator, and I have worked among the 18 Christian communities in Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry regions, which are very interesting for me. There are different communities, like we can call as endogamous groups. All these communities are endogamous groups. Initially, I thought they are Christians means all are one, but it is totally different. They have the Pentecostal, they have Seventh-day Adventists, Protestants, and Catholics, different type of categories, and one won't go to another church. In Pondicherry, I have seen, you know this is a French colony. I have clear-cut idea about what is what there. That is very important, which I want to mention here. Ethnocentrism exists among the Christians, Hindus, Muslims, Buddhism, and Jainism, and also Parsis. Almost all the religions in the world, they have their own ethnocentrism at different levels. And another important point anthropologically and sociologically point of view, I wanted to mention one of my scholar who was worked among the cremation of the dead bodies in Pondicherry. Here, as though the cremation ground is in Lasapet, one, but there are segregated of different castes. Brahmin is different, Vaniyars are different, Sudras are different, burial cremation places, and clear cut demarcations. One cannot go and cremate that body in that identified places. It is made clearly and it is acceptable in that society. Entire Pondicherry accepts. I have participated in several cremation ceremonies where they have different cremations, but the performance will be done by the same individual for all the cremations. So here ethnocentrism at varies at different levels, differently. One of the best example I wanted to bring it to you as a first personal data collected by myself in the Bastar or Abuz Maria tribe while working. The Abuz Maria tribal leader mentions in the discussion that, sir, you called yourself as a civilized people because you have the technology, you have the financial and different type of levels, you will be given as a civilized. How you can call yourself as civilized and tribals you are calling as uncivilized? The question asked me in the sense entire world, he has asked, sir, we are living in the poverty. That means we doesn't have a clothing. That is why we are half naked. And we doesn't have the proper food and clothing. As though we are living happily in our own way of life. And we are the happiest people living on the earth without any problem, without any issues. But whereas you have the wealth, you have everything, but you look half naked as though you have the clothing. I have seen in Bombay, Calcutta and other cities while visiting for the tribal festival functions for dancing and other purposes. I have noticed majority of them are half naked. I felt pity as though they have the wealth and why they are half naked, showing their body parts, both male and female. This is the way of thinking about the tribal society at remote areas of Chhattisgarh in Bastar region. From Bastar, it takes nearly 6 hours for me to reach that Narayanpur district where they are living. So, now you tell me which is ethnocentrism, which is the culture of higher culture and inferior culture. I can say it is their perception of thinking, how you will be thinking yourself. You are half naked means you are more cultured. You are eating with the fork and spoons means you are high culture. You eat with the hand means low culture. So these are the differences people perceive. But it is not like that. I have my own culture, they have their own culture. But you cannot equate and you cannot say this is a superior culture, this is an inferior culture. Okay? Before concluding, I wanted to give my inferences that prejudice involves coming to a judgment on a subject before learning where the preponderance of evidence actually lies. Alternatively, prejudice can refer to the formation of judgment without direct or actual experience. When looking at another culture or ethnic group, in order to compensate for ethnocentrism as a speaker, try to look at the other group through the eyes of the members of that particular ethnic or cultural group. As our society becomes more diverse, the speaker will find it desirable to put aside ethnocentrism and prejudice to learn more about the cultures, races, and ethnic groups that will be an increasing part of the local and global audience. Thank you very much for sharing my knowledge with you. See you in the next class. Thank you very much.